Senator Cynthia Lummis walked into the largest banks in the United States and delivered a single sentence: adapt to this market, or you will not survive it. CME launches XRP futures on May 29. Vivek Ramaswami deploys $85 million into Bitcoin, not at the top, but at the exact inflection point where M2 crosses the 4% deployment threshold. These are not three separate stories. They are three signals from the same structural sequence, the sequence that precedes every repricing event in financial history. I am the calm analyst. What I do on this channel is take the macro signals, the institutional data, and the structural mechanics and read them precisely, without the noise, without the emotion, without the agenda. Three threads we open here. The first, the real mechanic behind the M2 number and why 4% is the line that changes everything. The second, the CME futures launch as architecture, not volume. The third, the loading sequence that explains the lag and why XRP sits at the exact point where policy capital enters payment rails. Let me now map the first thread. Every financial commentator on this platform is repeating the same phrase. M2 is expanding. Liquidity is coming. The tide is rising. That is not analysis. That is weather reporting. It tells you it is raining. It does not tell you where the water flows. Here is what M2 expansion actually is. The Federal Reserve reports M2 growth at 4.7% year over year. $7 billion enters the U.S. economy in the next weekly injection. That number circulates through every headline and every thumbnail on this platform. But the number is not the mechanism. The mechanism is the threshold. When M2 growth sits below 4%, banks hoard. Capital stays inside the balance sheet. The cost of deploying capital into new infrastructure exceeds the return. Below 4%, the arithmetic of institutional finance says, wait. Wait for better conditions. Wait for lower risk. Wait for confirmation. And that is exactly what banks did from 2022 through the first half of 2024. They waited, not because they lacked capital, because the expansion rate had not crossed the deployment line. When M2 crosses 4%, the arithmetic inverts. The cost of inaction exceeds the cost of action. Sitting on cash becomes the losing position, and banks do not sit on losing positions. They move, not because sentiment changes, because the mathematical threshold forces the move. Are you tracking the M2 percentage on a chart, or are you reading the